Okay, so this next video lecture is still on the audit evidence. Okay, so but this time we will discuss about the reliability, okay, of the audit evidence. Okay, so the reliability of persuasiveness of audit evidence is influenced by its source and by its nature as well. So this is dependent on the individual circumstances under which it is obtained. Meaning, the auditor will judge the evidence as reliable if um, the source is also considered to be reliable. Meaning, when we say reliability, that particular information or evidence has the ability to support or dispel or is considered valid, okay, and relevant at the same time, okay, in the audit procedure or for a particular account, for example, that is under the audit. So here, the reliability as mentioned, this will depend on the source. Okay, so that's why we have what we call reliable sources. Okay, so in audit, we also have that type of source. Okay, so um, how do we determine, okay, if the source of this evidence is reliable? So as we go along, we will discuss this concept. So the generalization about the reliability of audit evidence are as follows. So normally these are the principles, okay, that is followed by the auditor when gathering audit evidences. Okay, so that the audit evidence will be considered reliable. So the first is audit evidence is said to be more reliable when this is obtained from an independent source that are outside of the entity. So meaning, if that information or evidence is from an outside party, okay, which is not an employee or part of the entity, okay, that information is considered to be more reliable. So an example of this is information from the suppliers and customers, okay, to confirm their account balances or other information that the auditor may ask from them. Okay, so this is more reliable compared to the records of the entity alone. Okay, so that is the first. Another is audit evidence that is generated internally is more reliable when the related controls are effective. So in this case, although this evidence are gathered from within the entity, okay, but this uh, evidence will be considered also reliable only if the internal controls are effective. However, if the internal controls are ineffective, then the auditor will expect that audit evidences generated internally will not be reliable because there is a possibility that there is higher risk of error and fraud and misstatement because of the ineffectiveness of the entity's internal control. So again, audit evidences gathered internally will only be considered reliable once internal control are effective. So the next uh, concept or principle is audit evidence that is obtained directly by the auditor is more reliable than the audit evidence obtained indirectly or only by inference. Meaning, if the auditor, for example, is the one who communicates the confirmation from the supplier and the customers. So the reply or the response will also go directly to the auditor. So this is considered to be more reliable. Whereas if the confirmation will be made by the entity and they will also receive the reply and they will be the one to give this information to the auditor, so there is some doubt, okay, about the reliability of this audit evidences, because there is a chance where the management or the entity can manipulate this data or information. Okay, so that's why audit evidences directly obtained by the auditor is considered to be more reliable. Okay, another principle is audit evidence in documentary form, whether it may be in the form of paper, electronic, or other medium. These are more reliable than audit evidences obtained orally. Okay, so this is true for all. Okay, because having a document that is tangible or published, for example, are a proof, okay, that there are existing policies or rules or source document where the transaction was based upon. Okay, so that's why there should be a that is why the auditor gathers evidence to support. So it has to be something that can be seen or tangible. Okay, whereas orally or audit evidence obtained orally can be just manufactured or without any basis at all. So it's not reliable. Okay, so lastly, audit evidence provided by original documents are also considered to be more reliable than those which are provided by photocopies or using facsimiles, meaning these are just uh, another copy of the document, but it's not considered to be original. Okay, or documents that have been filed, digitized, or otherwise transformed into electronic form. So the reliability of which may depend on the control over their preparation and maintenance. So again, this is also true because in most cases we rely on the original documents. Okay, whereas if it's photocopied documents can also be reliable, but it should be certified through copy. Okay, or an original document was also presented together with it. Okay, so in this case, if the document was, for example, it was handwritten in a piece of paper and it was transformed and typed into the computer and printed. So the printed form is considered to be less reliable because there might be some manipulation that goes along with the preparation, again depending on the effectiveness of the internal control in preparing such document. Okay, so those are the different generalization about the reliability of the audit evidence. So that's how the auditor, or this is should be the basis of the auditor when gathering his audit evidences. Okay, so those are for the reliability of our audit evidence. So we will continue with the nature of the evidence the auditor expects to gather. Okay, so in most cases, the auditor will rely on audit evidence that is persuasive rather than convincing. Okay, what do we mean by persuasive? So basically, when we say persuasive, this pertains to the the quality of the audit evidence, okay, in which this evidence will give the auditor a higher level of satisfaction, okay, in terms of the subject matter, for example, or the account that is under audit. Okay, so this audit evidence may not be very complete, but um, the auditor may consider it as relevant and reliable, okay, at the same time. So, um, in other words, this type of audit evidence are strong enough to support his audit opinion. Or it can also be um, an effective audit evidence, okay, to confirm or to dispel any assertion, okay, made by the management. So that is persuasiveness of the evidence. Whereas if the audit evidence is just convincing, meaning the auditor is just fine about it, but the level of meeting the expected level of audit evidence is not very high, okay, in this case. That's why the audit evidence should be persuasive, or it has the ability to um, affect the decision, okay, or make the auditor believe, okay, with a higher possibility of reliance over those uh, audit evidences. Okay, so the auditor should consider also the cost-benefit relationship in gathering the audit evidences, such that the cost of obtaining the evidence should not exceed the usefulness or the benefit to be achieved from such evidence. So this is actually, or this concept of cost-benefit uh, is always considered, okay, um, especially in this case that the auditor has a limited time for the performance of the audit procedures, and the resources also are limited. So here, he has to consider the cost benefit. If again, applying this rule, the audit evidence or the cost, okay, of obtaining such audit evidence should not exceed the usefulness, okay, to be achieved. Okay, so this will also be considered under the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence that will be gathered by the auditor. Okay, and lastly, however, the matter of difficulty and expense involved in testing a particular item, so this is not in itself a valid basis for omitting the test. So again, if the auditor, based on his professional judgment, uh, that the testing or that information is relevant or sufficient and appropriate, then he should gather such or perform such audit procedure to gather that audit evidence, okay, no matter how difficult or expensive it may be. Okay, but the thing here is, since it is necessary and considered to be sufficient and appropriate, then he has to include and gather and perform such audit procedures to gather that audit evidence. Okay, so those are for the nature of evidence that the auditor will expect to gather to support his audit opinion. Okay, so we will continue with the next topic. So this is about uh, audit objectives and audit procedures. Okay, so this is the second topic, by the way. So we already finished the first part of the module, which is about the audit evidences. Okay. So we will just continue this one in the next video lecture so that we can separate the concepts. Okay. So that will be all for the audit evidences.